Hello, and welcome to Unread Books. Today I have three books about a topic. And today's topic is films. Not just any kind of films, but that's the big question. What do you call them? Trash films, bad films, crazy films. I don't know. Most people call them maybe trash B-movies. That's also a name that's used. But I have the feeling there's good reason why we shouldn't call them bad and maybe not even B-movies. And there's maybe an idea with the second book I will show you today. But the first book today actually talks about movies being bad. And it's called the Golden Turkey Awards. As you can see, it even got a reward itself for the fastest reprint. The 50 worst movies of all time. Are they really the worst movies of all time? Are they bad? I don't know. I can't tell you. But as far as I remember, this is really the first book that gave bad films their due. It's due. What you call that? I come from the old country. I don't know. And the book came out in 1980, which was a great time to come out because. I see. You see that here? The book is pretty old, so I have to actually take the second book already and put it below here. So, yes, the book is from 1980, and that was a great time for movies because the 70s, in my eyes, were definitely the best time for movies in general. So many classics came out in the 70s, and I think when you went to the cinema in the 70s, when movies really became interesting, became the what you did at the weekend or once a week or whatever. In the 70s, you never knew what would come up. There was Jaws, there was Star Wars. Yes, everybody remembers those. There was Easy Rider. There was Kramer versus Kramer. Was that the title actually? There was Dustin Hoffman. There was Meryl Streep. There was European cinema. There was American cinema. There was little Chamber Kammerspieler. Oh, gee, that's words from the old country. There were small films, big films, action films. There was Dirty Harry. There was Charles Bronson, but there was also like Convoy and so on. All of these films, were so great. And at the end of the decade, this book came out. Why? Because the book remembered or maybe reflected on movies and this is the author, obviously, with his father or something. The book was seeing cinema not as an art form, not as mere entertainment, but as something what we would call postmodern. They were starting to think about the value of trash, the value of the bad, of the B, of the. Is entertainment just entertainment, or is it more than that? Is art really art, or is it just entertainment? And whatever. And the interesting thing is, this is not just a list of the 50 worst movies. This really gives us an idea of what to look for in bad movies. The most embarrassing movie debut, the ridiculous monster, the worst title, bad B movies with the double E and so on. Two-headed transplant movie, the worst two-headed transplant movie ever made, which means that there was more than one. Did you know that? I suppose you did. And rip-offs and so on. Actually, with a concept like this book might be interesting even today, or books like these are badly needed, because what I see today are mostly books about the 100 worst movies of all time, or 100 bad movies you must see before you die, or whatever. Yeah, and then there's a list of movies. Here, you get an idea of what can be bad. The worst vegetable movies, the worst performance by Sonny Tufts. Who is Sonny Tufts? I have no idea. The worst film you never saw, and the worst lines of romantic dialogue in movie history. That's intriguing, isn't it? And the book has longer text than most movie books I've seen. Sometimes, and a lot of pictures, actually. And you must remember that in the 1980s, without the internet, without masses of magazines about all kinds of movie genres and subgenres, it was difficult to even get pictures. I went to shops to buy pictures of movies. Can you imagine that? Like these movies you saw in the what there's a word for that in English. I'm sorry, I'm from the old country. With B movies and so on. As you see, the text is quite long, but not too long, and there's writing about the movies. They seem to show to show a few movies for the worst casting of all time. They show Listomania. They show The Story of Mankind. They show Fidel Castro, Che, and so. And in the end, they chose one. So I suppose it's more than 50 bad movies. I suppose. Yeah. What I wanted to say is the pictures here are I just wanted to say they are probably not the most sensational, but isn't that a sensational picture here? Like a man in a leisure suit being in an afro look, being followed by a two-headed man. It's a great film, by the way. Works great as a comedy with who is it? With this guy playing a racist and his head being transplanted onto a black man's body. No problem at all to make a film about that today, right? In the age of social justice and things like that. Yeah, giant monster movies in general, stuff like that. This is really great fun, I would say, to look through, to remember. And what's also good is today trash fans always seem to point out movies from the drive-in era, like from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, probably including some 80s movies. But this book has movies from the 30s in them, because they were, I suppose, on TV in those days, or even the reason might be that they actually were film aficionados, who saw films from the silent era and so on. Looking through that, I even saw a film from 1916 or something like that. Matilda, my God, I watched the film. I remember it being spooky somehow, but I didn't remember that Robert Mitchum was in it. Okay, what I love about books like these is that whatever the internet does, it shall do, and it's quite good. But looking through a book like this, I will always come across something that I didn't expect. And Herschel Gordon Lewis, I love this. I love this man. I love movies from this time, and as you can see, the book is already falling apart. Yeah, this is an old book, quite definitely. And what is that? Is that just a list, or the worst films compendium from A to Z, from the Adventurers, okay, to Zonta, the Thing from Venus. Hey, wasn't Zonta, the Thing from Venus a remake of a 1950s film? Yes, there was, I don't know who was it, William Castle, who made 50s trash films into 70s trash films with almost the same actors, but just older and whatever. To make a long story short and put that away because we need that later. This book is definitely still worth buying, still worth getting, still worth something. And there's even a follow-up to this called The Son of the Golden Turkey Awards, and there was even an album, music. with sound snippets and songs and little soundtracks from bad movies, and I had the record long before I had this book, and I was totally fascinated, and this way got into kinds of like rock and roll garage sound music and sound snippets and things like that. Of course, this is also the book that pointed out Plan 9 from Outer Space as the worst movie ever made, and a lot of people still say it is, and yeah, as I said in the beginning, I don't know what you mean today when you say this is a bad movie. Because Plan 9 from Outer Space is great entertainment, is a great time capsule of a time when movie making was different, and I love the film Tim Burton made about Ed Wood. I don't like Tim Burton very much, but this film was great. And when you call those movies bad, what do you say about today's general mainstream films? Are they more intellectual? Are they more entertaining? I would say neither nor. They are just more expensive, have bigger names, and I think cinema is dying. And going back here can make us remember that cinema was alive at a certain point. Talking about cinema being alive. When you were a film fan, and especially a trash film or fan of strange films in the 1980s, there wasn't much you could do, except finding some magazines, very few magazines actually, talking about strange cinema. And one of the magazines actually that came out was called Psychotronic Movies. And the makers of this magazine created an encyclopedia of what they called psychotronic movies. Psychotronic movies. Isn't that a great name, or isn't that a great adjective for this kind of films? Because is it trash? Is it bad? I don't know. It's psychotronic. Has a good ring to it. Should be used today. Not many people do that. This book, as you can see, it's quite heavy and big and long. It really comes up to more than 800 pages. Gee. And this was really like the Bible for us aficionados of the strange and exquisite. This book, created by a guy, as you can see on the first pages here, even looked like a mixture of a gonzo journalist and a hipster from the 80s. This guy really did something great by putting this book together. I had a similar... No, I didn't have a similar book. Wasn't a book like that. I had a book about horror films from the old country. I had a book about science fiction films, like encyclopedias. That was good to look through. But of course, all these books said that the modern meaning the 70s and 80s films, were all horrible and bad. And nobody celebrated these films. This compendium of strangeness definitely celebrates its genre. And yeah, as you can see, it's short text with just the slightest bits of information, but having that as all we had in those days, it was good to look. I mean, we knew that the Amityville Horror was made in 1979. That wasn't too long ago, actually. The book is from 1983. But to remember the Andromeda Strain and put it into connection with that is great, isn't it? And then to see like Angels, Wild Women. These were films really from the drive-in era, which were already fading in the memory of moviegoers in the 80s. Beach party films. When I got this book, I had no idea what this even was, and I was intrigued for obvious reasons. But as I told you before, when you listen to the album of the Golden Turkey Awards thing, then you got an idea that rock and roll was somehow connected to these kind of movies, and so music fashion, the 50s, the subcultures, the mainstream cultures of long gone days all came together in films of that era. And this book is still a treasure trove. I mean, look, on one page you have the blackboard jungle, and on the other page you have Ossory's like riding Blind Dead, the riding corpses of Spain and so on. Actually, the mix of this is incredible, because it includes horror, science fiction, fantasy, of course, gangster movies, beach party films, teenage movies, and so on, of course, but also like film noir and some art house films and so on. Yeah, it shows you what Psychotronic could really mean. What does it mean? Well, I mean, it's a good title. Good for the genre, but what does it mean? These are films that get right into your psyche. Is that enough to? Is that good enough? Is that good enough to? It's good enough. It should be. This book is really, really great. And again, I wonder if the internet can give me something like that. I'm sure there will be. I could look through Wikipedia and leaf through the B movies and trash films and whatever. There might even be a Wikipedia entry for Psychotronic movies. I don't know, but. Yeah, looking through this book at night when the lights are out is it's not helpful, because I can't see the book when the lights are out. But you get my drift, right? This is the stuff that this should lie next to my bed all the time. I'm sorry if I ever put this book somewhere else. It needs to be next to my bed, and in the morning I should open it and pick a film and watch it as soon as possible. My God, the Incredible Shrinking Man and the Incredible Melting Man next to each other. Who would have thought? Actually, in an encyclopedia, that's quite normal that these are next to each other. Last word about this book. Remember that in 1983, it was very, very difficult, if not impossible, to get hold of most of these films. I mean, in America, yes, you were lucky. You could get films from the video store, from Grandpa's video store next door, and he had old films like the Dunwich Horror. Probably, but probably not, because a lot of these films weren't published on VHS, and in the old country, no chance to get any of those. By the way, thank you to my pen pal Gunnar Hansen, Kent Hansen actually, from Denmark, who was so kind in the late 80s to send me a lot of the films I couldn't get in my part of the world, and I sent him some things in return, and thus learning English by writing letters and watching these films. But please remember how difficult it was to get hold of those films and to get hold of information about those films. And let's have a round of applause for everybody who protected these things from oblivion. Okay. Final book about Psychotronic movies. Just wanted to say trash and strange with Psychotronic movies. Everybody thinks that Psychotronic movies and these things are a thing of an American thing, right? Just like jazz and bourbon and rock and roll. These things are typically American, but of course there are films that are strange and wonderful from other parts of the world, and Peter Toombs is the saint of world cinema, I would say. Mondo Macabro was, I think, the first book. There's another book about world cinema around the world, and as you can see, if again, please go back some years now, before you even knew what Bollywood was and what Lollywood was and what Nollywood was. got you there, right? You don't know what Nollywood is. You had little idea that horror films even existed, trash action cinema even existed in other parts of the world, and by now we all know that. But I was so surprised and so enchanted by pictures like these. And as you can see here, there's Hong Kong in 3 parts. There's the Philippines, Indonesia, India in 2 parts. Is that real? I mean, Hong Kong in 3 parts, India in 2 parts. Maybe because the variety of films from Hong Kong was bigger than from India. Brazil, Turkey, Argentina, Mexico, Japan in 3 parts. Yeah, this is world cinema. My part of the world is not in here. We had some horror films and so on too, but but Turkish action films. Gee, and you can see things changing in the world. I mean, those women probably wear burqas today where they live. Actually, that's West German co-production. Okay, forget it. They won't wear burqas. Not yet. Like with all movie books, they must have great exploitative pictures, whetting your appetite for all these things. As you can see here, by the way, sometimes you have to get pictures from countries even different than that. So in a British book, there's something about a Hong Kong film, and they use a German lobby card for that. Isn't that globalism in the best way possible? The one little that's what is it? Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind. Is that really the title? The first Chai Hark film, which really traumatized me as a kid. And that's such a good film. I'm sorry. Relax. A good film book must have great images. Sadly, the images in this book are mostly black and white because the colors of Philippine posters and the colors of Indian these films are exceptional, and I wish this book existed for three times the price at least. With just colorful pictures, and I would buy it. But the other thing that's important is, of course, information. And of course, sometimes people say, that's too much text, I won't read. But this is perfect. You have pictures on every page, and you have text. And the text is really readable and important. Of course it is. Because what do you know about Purana Mandir? And Haveli. You know nothing about it. Let's face it. And you want to know something about it. And I must say, I bought most of the films I could get my hands off, because the book came out in, when did it come out? In 1998. And so, a short time later, the internet existed. And I don't know if that's still today, if that's a thing, but in those days I bought DVDs from eBay, and there were a lot of Indian and Pakistani sellers on eBay. I even got in contact with okay, I won't get into that. And I bought a lot of these DVDs. They hadn't DVDs, actually. They had video CDs, where every film was put into 2 parts. Horrible quality, sometimes with telephone numbers in the middle of the pictures for a shop you could call to get more films like that. An adventure in itself. Don't get me started about the subtitles these films had or didn't have. Here's some colorful pictures, by the way, of these these wonderful films. And I got a lot of these films. And I watched them, and believe me, you do not have to watch these whole films. They're actually they can be quite boring. but to get an idea of who Coffin Joe was, Zedokai Shao. I mean, if I had never seen any of his films, I would have died a poor man without being able to call myself a cinema connoisseur of the macabre and so on. Yes, these films, and the Santo films, of course. Yeah, you should watch some of these, definitely. And you should watch maybe like trailers and snippets of those, but you don't have to watch all of them. There's a reason, okay? There's a reason why these films are not worldwidely renowned as films, you know? There's something to be said for America and even Italy and so on. Film countries that are not in here, that makes American and Italian and French films better than the rest of the world. Forget, let's not go there. Anyway, reading this book saves you a lot of time and nerves. And on the other hand, yes. On the other hand, forget what I just said. If you get interested in the cinema of Brazil or the Philippines, by all means, dive into it and learn who Wang was and see, learn to differentiate Santo from Blue Demon. And yes, there's whole worlds waiting for you. If you are young, don't do this just because it's hip. You know, if you're cooler than your friends. Do it because you're really interested in the history of psychotronicity and the world and what people are interested in and what kinds of films were made. Because with every year that goes by, I think the world becomes smaller, films become more and more similar, and with some of the socio-political developments, a lot of the exploitation parts of these films will never, ever return. Just as a side note, I wish that a lot of the gender-oriented people who think that they invented LGBTQ should watch a John Waters film, okay, from the 70s, and get some perspective on things. How much cooler the whole community was in those days than it is today. That's it for today. Thank you for looking through this. And I would say all of these books are still worth looking at today. And everybody should own them and have them at their home and get interested in movies. I mean, Corona is still a thing. Stay at home, wear a mask while watching these films from this, and support everybody who supports these films. You know, buy DVDs. Don't let them get over to streaming, because a lot of these films might disappear this way or be changed for political reasons and whatever. I didn't want this to be political, but it has to be. Thank you for watching again, and have fun watching these movies. And there's a little Easter egg following right after the credits, right? Bye.
Thank you. successfully made their escape after slaying 5 guards and hurling the 20-foot barbed wire wall that surrounds the institution. Authorities have identified the escapees as Herbie Flick, Keith Rogers, and Gary Barcroft. Complete descriptions of these men will be broadcast at a later hour. But Sega Canyon are hereby warned to be on the lookout for the escape mechanism. Any information leading to their whereabouts will immediately be forwarded to Chief Captain
not only on the screen, but in the audience, all around you.
Not any account of them ever men on your own. They are armed and extremely dangerous.
That's all
And
around.
now, back
Not
to our
only
regular
on the screen, but live maniacs in the audience. All around there, looking for victims.
is a rock and roll singer. Last year, he sold 10 million records. His fans are legion.